Chapter 4, Subchapter 2, The Compound. I moved to the compound at the age of 4 with my mother, Bella, short for Isabella. My earliest memories are hazy, though I believe I can recall fragments of a train ride. I remember being frightened and sitting next to my mother and having her hold me close. Strangely, it is the warmest memory I have of my mother. Yup, I guess it is pretty sad when holding her hand on a train is the best memory I have. As for my earliest memory of the compound, what stands out most clearly is the sheer number of people eating together in the communal dining room. The crowd overwhelmed me. In Paris, we always ate alone. We were never allowed to dine in the main house. Sons, when you come across this book, you may be in your late teens, early 20s, or perhaps much older. By then, we will have shared countless experiences living at the compound. Like you, I was tutored in various subjects and multiple languages. Uncle Lee always insisted that every child at the compound received a rigorous, trilingual education at a minimum standard. I grew up speaking French with my mother, peppered with the occasional Romani phrase. Chinese was the primary language spoken by the extended family and the staff. My formal schooling, however, was in French, English, and Chinese. Education at the compound was relentless, 12 months a year, 6 days a week. Uncle Lee frequently brought in experts from around the world to teach us in 2-week courses on a wide variety of subjects from science to culture. Our curriculum initially focused on rote learning, memorizing facts through endless repetition. It was grueling, with hours of homework every night. By the time we reached 12 or 13, rote learning gave way to problem solving and independent thought. Newspapers and periodicals arrived weekly from all over the world and in multiple languages. In hindsight, it was a remarkable system. I didn't realize at the time how unique this upbringing was. I simply assumed all children were educated this way. From a young age, it was clear that I had a knack for languages. Uncle Lee arranged for private tutors to teach me and another child Spanish, Italian, and Russian. Other children received specialized training tailored to their interests, some in math, others in science or the arts. Footnote 12. Sons, I am proud to say that I speak the following languages fluently without any noticeable accent: Chinese, English, French, and Shanghainese. I also have excellent knowledge of the following, albeit with the tiniest of accents: Italian and Spanish. I have enormous knowledge of Russian, but with a terrible peasant's accent. Finally, I have knowledge but no fluency in German and Dutch. Every Sunday, the New York Times weekend edition arrived, and doing the crossword was my absolute pleasure. We return. At 12 years old, our education expanded to include outdoor survival training. Twice a year during the Chinese Spring Festival and Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival, we embarked on extended hiking and camping trips to rural parts of France. I doubt this tradition has changed much over the years. Baba and Uncle Lee believed deeply in self-reliance, insisting that we learn to live off the land with minimal resources. We were taught to hunt using rifles and crossbows, as well as how to survive in extreme conditions. I fell in love with the outdoors during these trips and have remained an avid outdoorsman ever since. Your mother, however, despised camping. From the day I met her, I told her I would occasionally need solo expeditions to clear my mind and recenter myself. She eventually insisted on joining me on one of these trips. Let's just say that after watching me skin a rabbit, she never asked to come along again. At 16, we began formal tutoring to prepare for university entrance exams. With few exceptions, all of us eventually enrolled in top American universities. At 17, I began exploring the wild, untouched lands surrounding the compound. Those solitary adventures profoundly shaped my perception of the world and my place in it. After being accepted to university, I asked Uncle Lee if I might take 5 days a week to explore the wilderness. My home life, especially living with my mother, had become increasingly strained. He understood my situation, trusted my ability to survive on my own, and granted me the freedom I sought. Those days, alone in nature, immersed in thought, remain some of my most cherished memories. The summer before I left for the United States, I turned 19. 2 weeks into my first semester, I received a call from the administrator at the compound. My mother had taken her own life. I rushed home. I won't dwell on this subject. Living with someone who is bipolar is extremely challenging, especially as a child. I spent much of my youth questioning whether I was the cause of her illness. She alluded to it often enough. I grew up with crippling low self-esteem and zero self-confidence. I cannot stress this enough: zero self-confidence. I was overweight, had bad skin, and although it was never overtly obvious, the Chinese children on the compound laughed at me behind my back. The compound itself was, and still is, a unique place. For those fortunate enough to live there, there are no personal expenses. The family trust, established by Baba decades ago, has ample funds to cover all needs. Outsiders are strictly prohibited, except for professional tutors and the occasional tradesmen brought in to upgrade the facilities. Even then, the tradesmen are always Chinese, never local. Baba once told Uncle Lee, "Keep hidden. No one needs to know too much about what we do here or how we live." The old underworld mentality of secrecy remains strong. Residents who leave the compound, other than for educational purposes, are expected to support themselves. However, if they wish to return or retire to the compound, they are warmly welcomed back into the community. It is a beautiful place, and I know in my heart that Baba saved his extended family from the chaos of the Chinese Revolution. By extension, he also saved both my mother and me. Sons, within 2 days of learning of your mother's murder, I began making inquiries about moving you both to the compound. Although I had the right to return, there were certain restrictions regarding your residency. I never imagined we would be separated, but regardless, I immediately made a generous donation to the family trust to ensure that you would be treated as native residents. Negotiating this was relatively easy, as I had grown up with the administrator. I was more than happy to contribute. When I say 2 days after your mother's murder, understand her loss feels as fresh as if it happened yesterday. For me, it has been almost 3 months, and I am still consumed by grief. Reflecting on the education and the non-scholastic activities at the compound, I realized that Baba and Uncle Lee created more than a refuge. They created a paradise. It was a place that nourished young minds and instilled a knowledge base simply unavailable anywhere else.